So Friday's quiz will use this very simple algorithm to figure out what type of sorting algorithm you'll need to write down. Um, and so whether or not you're using selection or insertion, if you're ordering it ascending to or descending, and if you're sorting an array or an array list of integers. Um, so you'll need to figure that out. Um, and so let's walk through that a little bit about what the differences are between each issue. So the selection or insertion essentially is just a nested loop, both of them. Selection is very defined, so it starts at 0, stops at 1 before. The inner loop starts 1 after that and goes to the very end. So, and whereas the insertion sort has a defined outer loop where it starts at 1 and goes to the very end, but the inner loop actually goes backwards. So it starts um, 1 behind where this one lies up. So this one goes forward while this one moves backwards. And that's because the logic about what they're trying to do and how they're trying to sort varies a little bit. Selection sort builds the final list as it goes through. So the inner loop finds, okay, I'm looking for the very largest or very smallest number, depending on what you're trying to sort. So it'll go through and find the very smallest or largest number and put that in place. So it's building the final result as it traverses the array. This one works differently. This one starts at 1 and it's sorting the list that's behind it. So as it grabs the next number, it will shuffle everything down until it finds the right spot, and then it drops and finishes the three-part swap and puts it into place. So this could have to go the entire list down to find the very smallest number, or the number could be after one swap, it finds a spot, passes the check, and then it's done. Um, so this one can vary with its efficiency. The selection will always be n squared. Now let's look at the difference between ascending or descending. Uh, the uh, the selection sort will vary a little bit more depending on what you're, because you need to create a temporary variable to store the current address of the largest number. As the inner one searches through, we're looking to find the next largest or the next smallest number. So we sort of label that variable appropriately. So that will change naturally. Of course, the biggest thing is just this comparison. And so this could be largest and it works just the same without us changing the name. And you could find something more ambiguous, like you know, seeking address or index, and then just change all of these. And that way, the only thing that would vary would be this this comparison, if we're looking for the very largest or the very smallest. And then we use that to in the three-part swap. Same thing here is just as we're comparing it, we're just sorting as we're shuffling everything down. We just want to see if the number that we're looking at, the one that's right behind uh, our current outer loop, if that's bigger or smaller or whatever, then we need to move it over and find a spot for our next number. So it's just the difference really between these, and that's all that essentially needs to change. And the difference between an array and an array list is just how you access the data. So to get the length of an array, it's just dot length, but it's dot size. It's an accessor method for an array list. Because remember, an array list just has an array at its core. We built our own version of the array list. It's just a wrapper. It's a shell around an array that gives it all these extra functions. And so it essentially does the same thing, but this length property is private in this object. And so to access it, we need the accessor method. Anyway, and so you can't do exactly a one-to-one comparison here because they are different algorithms. Um, so don't try to like see, ooh, how are they different, because they're they're one's selection, one's insertion. But you can see that while I'm accessing a value at the largest index, I use brackets. Where this one, if I'm trying to get a value, I have to use get y and not brackets. And when I'm setting a value, I just call the address and then set it equal to whatever I want. Where this, I have to set the address equal to whatever it is. And if I need to look up that address, then I have to use .get inside the parentheses. So I'll set the one that's ahead of it, so I'm shuffling one over. So the one that's behind it, moving forward one, and then I'm moving back. So I'm moving all of the numbers over until I find the spot for my current outer loop to be dropped in. And that's what happens right here, the last part of the insertion sort using an array list. Okay, so those are the 3 different questions you need to ask, and these are sort of the differences between them. If you have any questions, please let me know before Friday.